Sunday, March 8, 2026. Buddha Dhamma, compiled by Somdet Buddha Gosacharya. English name, P.A. Payuto. Chapter 17.12, on the top of page 1675. Means for extorting the Dhamma and enhancing communal welfare. We're going to read 17.12a, bowing and paying respects. 17.12b, the prescription forbidding monks from claiming superhuman states. 17.12c, offerings to the Sangha, the monatistic community, the Bhikkhu Sangha, from page 1675 to page 1687. 17.12a, bowing and paying respects. It is well known that the Buddhist communities for the lay peoples follows, bows, and paying respects to the bhikkhus. Within the community of monks itself, gestures of respects are made according to the manner of years an individual has been ordained. A monk who has been ordained for fewer years pays respects to the monk who has been ordained longer. In terms of internal spiritual qualities, a lay person who is a noble being, a Dakshinaya Pugala, or an Arya Pugala, a person that's worthy of reverence and respect, has attained to the level of awakening, still bows to a monk who is unenlightened. In the Bhikkhu Sangha, the monatistic community, a fully awakened monk, an Arihat, still pays respects to the unawakened monk, if the latter monk has been ordained for a longer period of time. This distinctive way of paying respects in the Sangha is not a matter of proving a person's value based on the prestige or external authority, or even an internal spiritual attributes. The polities and customs regarding bowing and offering the respects exist in order and simplicity, and for the well-being and harmony of the community. Community harmony and peace fall under the terms of the Dhamma, the eternal law of virtue or righteousness, as the aspects of truth. By following these customs of paying respects, one acts for the well-being and integrity of the community. Moreover, it cultivates goodness and venerates the eternal law of Dhamma. Awakened person, the Arihats especially, have no attachment to the sense of self, which should lead them to such customs of paying respects as the gauge for a person's value or the means for self-grandizement. They follow these well-established customs, aiming for the well-beings of the community, for the veneration and respects for the Dhamma and for the discipline, the Vinaya, and even for the assistance of the person of whom they pay respects to. If that person is morally inferior, but still contains some goodness, this act of respect will remind him to be careful, to improve himself and to strive for her higher virtue. As in the case of the awakened person refraining from paying respects in particular circumstances, they do this for a reason, by aiming for the benefit of the person or of the community, not because of the mental defilement and conceit. Awakened persons, lay person, pay respects to the bhikkhu, the monks, even those who are not unenlightened, for reasons connected to the truth as way to venerate the truth, as can summarize as follows. Monks relinquish the householder's life, which is normally a life of seeking pleasure and sensual gratification. They voluntarily remove themselves from comfort and material balance. They follow rules of training and keep discipline, which is difficult for the unenlightened person to observe. Even the unawakened lay people that are arihats, are not compelled to practice at this level of austerity. They recognize that the monks do that which is difficult to do. Monks maintain a way of life that is considered by Buddhists to be a way of self-development and a way of bringing well-being and happiness to the world. This way of life should be honored and praised. Monks are part of the monastic Sangha, the Bhikkhu Sangha. They are members of the community whose duties are directly related to the Dhamma. The monastic Sangha is where virtuous people gather, where most of the members are of virtuous nature, which is optimal environment for cultivating goodness. It is the symbol of the Dhamma, or the stability of the Dhamma. Each individual bhikkhu or monk represents the monastic Sangha, which one pays respects to the monk in this sense, not to the specific personality. One is honoring the Sangha and venerating the Dhamma. The Bhikkhu Sangha is a Buddhist assembly performing the duties of studying, practicing, and propagating the Dhamma in the optimal and most effective way. It safeguards the Dhamma, the Buddhist teaching, and the discipline, the Vinaya, the system of training, and it assists the transmission of Buddhist religions. Monks are considered the heirs of Buddhist dispensation. The paying respects to the monk as representatives of the Sangha is equivalent to supporting the monastic community in order for it to provide blessings and happiness to the world. At the very least, awakened lay people pay respects to the monk with a mind of loving kindness. They wish for the monk's welfare, happiness, and the prosperity of the Dhamma by helping them to remember and to take into account their additional position and their responsibilities, which need to be attended to with diligent, sustained effort. A monk or a novice who makes effort and trains themselves through, although he is still unenlightened, is still worthy of respectful salutation from the lay people, even if they are awakened. In other words, if a monk or a novice asks himself whether he possesses virtue worthy of the lay people's veneration, this very self-awareness and self-inquiry is worthy of respect. The paying of respects between monks according to the seniority is separate from the formal acts of the Sangha Kamma, the monastic community actions, which are accomplished by a formal resolution amongst community members and conducted by an astute and able bhikkhu. For such formal acts, the monk should unanimously designate a leader who possesses trustworthy and admirable personalities. Pasataniya Dhamma. A monk who has been ordained for a long time and has much experience is a more suitable candidate for this position than a monk who has been ordained more recently, because the elder monk has more time to study, to train, and to develop himself. But seniority is not the decisive factor in this section. 17.12b, the prescription forbidding monks from claiming superhuman states. Another rule of the Vinaya, the discipline that demonstrates the spirits of fostering the collective good and emphasizes the importance of the community, is the rule for forbidding monks from claiming exceptional spiritual qualities or from claiming to have realized superhuman states. Uttara manusa dhamma, like deep states of concentration, like jhana, concentration of attainment, samapatti, or stages of enlightenment. If a person falsely claims to possess these qualities with the intention, and emphasis on this, with the intention to deceive, he commits a parajika, an offense, and automatically falls away from the state of being a bhikkhu, even if he has realized one of these exceptional states. If he mentions this attainments to a lay person or to someone else who is not a bhikkhu or a bhikkhu, he is still at fault and transgresses a less serious rule requiring expiation, a pachitsitiya. The former rule originated during a time of famine when a group of monks who were looking for ways to obtain food without difficulty decided to praise one another's personal qualities, sometimes based on fact, sometimes not. By saying, for example, this monk has attained jhana, this monk is a sotapanna, this monk is an arihat, this monk has attained the 6 higher psychic attainments. As a result, the devoted lay people provided them with abundant food. When Gautama Buddha was made aware of this, he laid down the training rules, saying that it was undignified to boast about one's exceptional qualities for the sake of one's stomach. He severely criticized these monks who made false claims, calling them to the most contemptible thieves in the world. A similar rule forbids monks for displaying psychic powers to the lay people. A monk who transgresses the rule commits the offense of wrongdoing, a dukkanta. This rule originated when the wealthy merchant hung a sandalwood bowl from the end of a long bamboo pole and declared a challenge. He would give this bowl to anyone who is an arihat and possesses true psychic powers. But this person's most liative and collected the bowl, or the person must levitate and collect the bowl himself. Venerable Pinto Dola Bharatavaja heard of this challenge, wanted to preserve the honor of Buddhism, rose in the air and collected the bowl, causing great excitement and wonder among the inhabitants of Rajaka in India, or Bharat at the time, ancient India. Gautama Buddha then laid down the training rule, reproaching Bindodala Tarabhata for displaying psychic powers of levitations in exchange for a relatively worthless bowl, comparing this action with a woman who exposes herself for a mere coin. Before laying down the training rules, Gautama Buddha mentioned that it was inappropriate to boast about one's merits, skills, and special ability for the sake of material gain for a nation or personal advantage. When he laid down and defined the actual rule, he said that it was the transgression to boast about or display one's merits and abilities for any reason, not limited to seeking personal profit or for a nation. The deeper objectives behind Gautama Buddha's conduct here, for example, Gautama Buddha did not wish for people to become overly excited or captivated by things they believed to be beyond their own reach, or by to entrust their hope to someone or something else to point of abandonment in their own efforts within the range of their ability. The objective discussed here is connected to the monetistic Sangha. According to the Buddhist dispensations, the survival of the Dhamma Vinaya is dependent on the monetistic Sangha as a whole. The transmission of the teachings and the protection of the Dhamma Vinaya relies on the stability of the monetistic Sangha. Gautama Buddha entrusted the Dhamma Vinaya to the monetistic Sangha rather than to the specific individual, where the latter case was true. The teaching would not have lasted long. Gautama Buddha wished for the lay people to support and relate to the monks as a community, and to support individual monks in the impersonal ways as representing of the monetistic Sangha. Although an individual monk or a group of monks may have an exceptional proficiency or may have reached an outstanding spiritual realization, their relationship to the laity has a direct bearing on the entire monetistic community, allowing other members of the monetistic community to partake in their achievements. This is easily discernible in the case where a monk possesses spiritual virtues or ability. The advantages that an individual monk with special merits or the ability receives also extend to the entire community, which flourishes along with that individual. On the other hand, If the monk's merits or ability are personalized as belonging to a specific individual or associated with a particular group, only the individual or the group will prosper, while the greater Sangha will be deprecated. When a monk boasts his own exceptional qualities, lay people tend to focus their attention and lavish their support on him. At the same time, the monastic Sangha as a whole declines in importance, receive less attention, and is weakened as a result. This is the reason why some arihats at the time of Gautama Buddha, when their exceptional abilities became known publicly, so people became attached to them as an individual and gave them personal donation. They became focused on the attention to the extent that the importance of the monastic Sangha as a whole was waned, would quickly leave that locality. For monks to boast about or proclaim their exceptional spiritual qualities to lay people, regardless of whether those claims are true or false, have the following harmful consequences. First, it causes lay people to become preoccupied and focus on an individual person or group rather than taking an interest in the wider monastic community. Lay people who lack an understanding will judge and compare people, praising some while disparaging others, based sometimes on truth and sometimes on not truth. This causes harm to themselves and to the wider Buddhist community. Second, if such proclamations were acceptable, it would not be only for those individuals with righteous attainments who would proclaim. Those individuals who has misjudged their own attainments would also proclaim. But even more serious, it would offer a chance for shameless individuals to cause trouble by boasting. The lay people who lack knowledge and to experience these matters are unable to distinguish between what is true and what is false. They may be misled by skillful charlatans and consequently view something false as marvelous and reliable. Third, unawakened lay people possess varying preferences and interests that those monks who have realized exceptional spiritual qualities may have personality traits and abilities that are incompatible with the lay people's wishes. Not all spiritual attainments people are endowed with the skills and attributes to act as leaders while following in the footsteps of Gautama Buddha. Some realized monks are unable to explain and to teach. So some realize that monks are unable to explain and teach, similar to the silent Buddhas, Pachika Buddha. There are sometimes no match for the unawakened teachers. This is similar to a person who has traveled to a distant land, but on returning is unable to give a captivating, persuasive descriptions of his travels. Another person who has never been to this land, however, may be able to give a vivid, dramatic account, like some geographic professors who are an adept at teaching about foreign countries despite having never stepped foot there. In terms of personal attributes, some monks have realized the fruits of awakening, an arihatship, but have unattractive physical appearance. Venerable Lakuntaka Bhattiya, for example, was an arihat. He was a dwarf and hunchback. The young monks and novices would tease and ridicule him so much that the Buddha, Gautama, needed to come to his aid. If this person proclaims his spiritual achievements, he may have led people to refute these achievements and to view Buddhism in a negative light. A deceptive, unawakened person, however, may lead a greater number of people down the incorrect path due to his being charismatic and articulate. Fourth, if a realized being skilled at teaching, realized beings unskilled at teaching, unrealized beings who overestimate their achievements, and people who are charlatans were to proclaim their spiritual attainments, the Buddhist dispensation would become mixed up and muddled. People would not know which teachings are correct and which are false. Some people possess true knowledge of some aspects of their experience, but their attempts to describe the realization are at odds with essential meaning because they lack a formal study of the teaching, which lead to confusion, misunderstanding, and disunity of the Buddha's teaching. The confirmation of enlightenment is the responsibility and perspective of Gautama Buddha, who established the Buddhist religion and protect both the teaching and the disciples. Confirmation and endorsement rests with the Buddha Gautama and his teachings. Latter disciples voluntarily accept these teachings. The responsibility of disciple does not require referring to personal spiritual attainments, but rather assists of remaining true to the Buddha's teachings. True disciples of Gautama Buddha try not to deviate from the Buddha's own teachings, and they use consistency with the Buddha's teaching as the basic criteria for correct transmissions of the teaching. They need not refer to their own awakening or as a criteria for the evaluation that preserves the integrity of the teaching and of Buddhism. Fifth, when a person proclaims exceptional spiritual qualities, faithful lay supporters will bring material gifts and offerings. These gifts are due to that person's proclamations and thus accord with the Vinaya. They are impure gains. As according to the Vinaya, they are impure gains. It is the nature of unawakened beings to refrain from speaking about proclamation of their spiritual attainments. A person who boasts of being an awakened person reveals precisely the opposite of not being awake. The only people who proclaim exceptional spiritual qualities that they are truly possessed are unawakened people with mundane spiritual attainments, like concentration of attainments of jhana samapatti. 17.12c, offering to the monatistic community. The subject of revealing one's personal attainments is connected to the tradition of making offerings to the monatistic community, sangha dana. Buddhism distinguishes between two kinds of donations, danas. Donations made to specific individual, patipukalika dana, and donations made to the entire monatistic community, sangha dana. The Buddhist teachings state that the offerings made to someone with little virtue bear relative little fruit, while offering made to highly virtuous people bear great fruit. Offering made to the community, however, are more fruitful than offering made to the individual. Gautama Buddha categorized offerings made to the individuals from high to low. Gifts to the Buddha, gifts to the silent Buddha, gifts to the Arihats, gift to the once returner, Anagami, Sakagami, Sotaban, so forth, etc. All the way gifts to made to virtuous unawakened persons, like a bodhisattva, immoral persons, and animals. And he used the comparisons. A gift to animals may be expected to repay 100-fold. A gift to an immoral individual may be expected to repay 1,000-fold. A gift to a virtuous ordinary person may be expected to repay 100,000-fold. A gift to a renunciant outside the dispensation who is free from lust for sensual pleasures may be expected to repay 10,000 millionfold. A gift to a sotapan, the stream enter, who is expected to repay incalculably, immeasurably. What then should be said for a gift to one who virtue exceeds this, like an arihat? As stated above, however, offering made to the community are more fruitful than offering made to any individual. The most complete donation to the monatistic community is offered to both the bhikkhus and the bhikkhunis, with Gautama Buddha at the head. Next are donations made to both bhikkhu and bhikkhunis communities after the Buddha has passed away, and then donations made to the predetermined numbers of monks and nuns, acting as representative for the wider community and not specifically particular individual names. Even in the future, when the Dhamma Vinaya has almost perished, offering made in the name of the Sangha is to immoral monks who simply wear some brown cloth around their necks bears great fruit. The Buddha concluded, I say that in no such way does a gift to an individual person ever has greater fruit than the offering made to the Sangha. At one time, Gautama Buddha had the following conversation on his subject with the householder. Gautama Buddha asked, Householder, are alms given by your family? The householder replied, Oh yes, Lord. My family offer alms, and these alms are given to such monks who keep the observances of dwelling in the forest, eating only alms food and wearing rag robes, who are arihats and who have realized the path of arihatship. Gautama Buddha replies, But surely you are a layman, a householder, and a busy family man. Find it difficult to tell which monk is an arihat or has realized the path of arihatship. Regardless of whether a monk dwells in the forest or in the village, whether a monk eats alms food or accepts meal invitation, whether a monk wears ragged robes or robes offered by the laity, if he is distracted, proud, overconfident, outspoken, foul-mouthed, absent-minded, uncircumspect, irresolute, agitated, and with sense unrestrained, he on that account is blameworthy. But if he is not distracted, not proud, not overconfident, not outspoken, not foul-mouthed, mindful, circumspect, one-pointed, determined with sense restraint, he on that account is praiseworthy. Gautama Buddha then encouraged the householders to make offerings to the wider monastic community, saying that by making such offering, the mind is joyful and bright. And when the mind is bright, at death, one goes to a happy abode. Apart from focusing on self-training and self-development, the practice of behaviors for bhikkhus should take into consideration the well-being for the monastic community and for all human beings at the very least. As the result of the monastic rule of discipline, the monks should make those people whom they interact with feel safe, happy, and at ease. Furthermore, if possible, the monks should teach the Dhamma so that people develop sattva, faith, moral conduct, sila, learning, sutta, generosity, dana, and wisdom, panya. In other words, the monks have two responsibilities in relation to the laity. A responsibility in regard to the discipline, the vinaya, of gladding the minds of the laity by keeping moral precepts and observances, and the responsibility in regard to law, causality, the truth, the Dhamma, of imparting the truth and sharing goodness in order to help the laity develop spiritually. As for the lay people, when they interact with monks, they should aim to acquire spiritual riches in order to advance in the way of truth. And when they offer support to the monks, they should take into account the benefits accrued to the wider monastic community. And in the case the lay people choose to interact with or make offerings to the individual monk, they should do so with the monastic sangha, be stable and secure, and for the lasting welfare and happiness of all people. That's the end of 17.12. In the middle of page 1687, Buddha Dhamma.